I trusted her with my life, and that's exactly how she destroyed me. The woman who once saved me from death wasn't my protector, she was the one who led me into it. But back then, on the night of the crash, I thought she was my savior. Daniel trusted her with his life, but that trust became the biggest mistake he would ever make. She was the one who pulled him out of the wreckage, the one who saved him when no one else could. But what if the savior he worshipped was the very person who would later betray him? Why did he place blind faith in her? How did loyalty blind him to the truth? And what was the price he would pay for ignoring every warning? The rain was merciless that night, hammering against the windshield like 1,000 fists. Daniel's mind spun with his father's last words: "Trust is a virtue, doubt is a sin." He hated that phrase. But no matter how far he drove, the echo of his father's voice clung to him, louder than the storm. His tires skidded on the wet highway. The sudden glare of a truck's headlights blinded him. There was no time to react. Metal collided with metal, glass exploded, and the car flipped violently, shattering every illusion of safety. When silence fell, Daniel was trapped in twisted steel, ribs screaming with pain, blood warm on his face. He thought it was the end. But then, through smoke and rain, he saw her, Maya. She wasn't supposed to be there, but she was. Her figure burst into the chaos like a force of will. "Daniel," she cried, tearing at the crumpled door with bleeding hands. Her strength was unreal, her desperation raw. She refused to let him slip away. "Stay with me. Don't you dare close your eyes." Her voice cut through the storm. And somehow the door gave way. Maya dragged him out, her arms trembling but unrelenting. Asphalt scraped his skin, his chest burned with fire, but her grip was unbreakable. She clung to him as if he was hers alone to save. When paramedics arrived, Daniel was barely conscious. He heard her whisper in his ear, her breath hot, her words chilling despite the storm. "You owe me, Daniel. You owe me your life." He passed out before he could answer. To him, those words meant devotion, gratitude, a vow that he would never betray her. But to her, those words meant ownership, control, a claim. As the ambulance sped away, Maya stood in the rain, soaked and blood-stained. Her lips curled into a faint smile, not of relief but of triumph. That night, Daniel believed he had found his savior. But in reality he had welcomed his greatest danger. And the question remained, was it truly an accident that brought them together, or had Maya always been waiting? Daniel opened his eyes to the sterile white ceiling of the hospital. The steady beep of the heart monitor reassured him he was alive, but every breath came with pain. He tried to move, but sharp agony in his ribs and leg held him prisoner to the bed. The crash had broken him physically, but the sight beside him broke him emotionally. Maya, slumped in a chair, eyes closed, her hand wrapped around his as if she'd never let go. When she noticed he was awake, she shot up. "Daniel, you scared me. You've been out for almost 2 days." Her eyes glistened with tears, but her grip on his hand only tightened. You saved me," Daniel whispered, voice cracked. Maya smiled, but not softly. It was a smile of power. "Of course I did. You'd be dead if it wasn't for me." Her words stung, but Daniel dismissed it. Gratitude drowned out suspicion. "I owe you everything." That became their rhythm in the weeks that followed. Daniel's parents visited, but their guilt turned every interaction into an argument. His father, a preacher, insisted God had spared him. "Trust in him, not in people," his father lectured. But Daniel turned to Maya instead. She fed him soup, read to him, kept vigil at night when no one else did. But her devotion came with conditions. One afternoon, his childhood friend Lily tried to visit. Maya intercepted her at the door. "He's resting. He doesn't need distractions." When Daniel asked about Lily later, Maya smiled sweetly. She looked uncomfortable. "I thought it best to let you heal in peace." Daniel believed her, at least at first. Maya's backstory began to seep out in fragments. She told Daniel she had no real family, no one who ever protected her. "People always use me then throw me away," she said, tears shimmering in her eyes. "But not you. You're different. You're mine now." Daniel felt sympathy. How could he not? But what he didn't realize was that Maya carefully crafted these confessions to bind him tighter. Her loneliness became his responsibility. Her pain became his debt. At night, when Daniel couldn't sleep, he thought about the crash. Something about it gnawed at him, the way Maya appeared out of nowhere. But then he'd remember her arms dragging him to safety, her voice screaming for him to live. Doubt whispered, but gratitude shouted louder. One evening, as Daniel drifted off to sleep, Maya leaned close and whispered, "You can trust me, Daniel. You can only trust me." It sounded like a promise. But in truth it was a warning. Because while Daniel healed in the hospital, Maya was already rewriting his world, erasing friends, pushing away family, and planting the seed that she was his sole protector. And Daniel, blinded by loyalty, didn't notice the trap closing. Daniel's release from the hospital should have felt like freedom, but instead, it felt like stepping into another kind of confinement. His body was weaker, his steps slower, and his dependence greater, but Maya was there every moment, making sure he never forgot who had saved him. "Careful," she said, holding his arm as he limped down the front steps of the hospital. "Don't forget, you wouldn't be walking if it weren't for me." Her words were wrapped in affection, but laced with reminder. Gratitude was supposed to make Daniel feel lighter, but instead, it became a chain he couldn't shake. At home, Maya settled in as though she belonged there. She cooked meals, organized his medications, and rearranged the furniture so Daniel wouldn't struggle to move around. His parents raised eyebrows at her constant presence, but every time they questioned it, Maya responded with icy sweetness. "He needs me," she said. "Where were you the night he almost died?" "Because I was the one who bled pulling him out." The argument always ended there. Who could fight against that? But Maya's caretaking came with rules. When Daniel's old friends called, she answered his phone. Sometimes she said he was sleeping. Other times she said he wasn't ready to talk. When Daniel protested, she tilted her head, hurt flickering across her face. "I thought you trusted me," she whispered. "After everything I've done, don't I deserve that?" And every time Daniel gave in. Because how could he argue? She had saved him. But the weight of the debt grew heavier. One night, Maya sat across from him, her eyes dark in the dim light of his living room. "You know you wouldn't be alive without me," she said softly. "And I can't stop thinking, what if it had been me in that car? Would you have done the same?" Daniel hesitated. "Of course I would." "Would you?" she pressed, leaning forward. "Would you bleed for me? Would you fight for me? Would you die for me?" Her intensity unsettled him, but he forced a nod. "Yes, Maya. I would." Her smile returned, but it wasn't warm. It was satisfied. From that night she began testing him. Small things at first, asking him to skip physical therapy to spend time with her, convincing him to cut off friends who didn't care about him the way she did. Each time, Daniel resisted, but she always found a way to twist it back to loyalty. "You owe me," she reminded him. "All I ask is proof you'd do the same for me. Is that too much?" Daniel told himself it was just gratitude, just Maya's way of coping with her own scars. But deep down, a whisper gnawed at him. This isn't love, it's control. Still, he silenced the doubt. Because how could he question the woman who had saved his life? And yet, every time she said, "You owe me," the words felt less like devotion, and more like a threat. Daniel sat on the porch one late afternoon, the autumn sun sinking behind the trees. He'd grown stronger but not strong enough. His body healed, but his spirit felt bruised in ways he couldn't name. And Maya, always close, always watching, was both comfort and burden. She brought him tea, her movements graceful, her smile flawless. But Daniel had begun to notice something. The smile never quite reached her eyes. "You're quiet today," she said, setting the cup down beside him. "Just thinking," Daniel muttered. "About me?" Her question was sharp, almost daring. "About everything," he corrected. Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she quickly softened. "I know it's hard, Daniel. But you'll see, everyone else just doesn't understand. Only I do." It was meant to reassure him, but instead, it unsettled him. That evening, while she cooked, Daniel's phone buzzed with a message. It was Lily again, his childhood friend, the one Maya had turned away at the hospital. "Are you okay? Haven't heard from you in weeks." He typed a reply quickly, "I'm fine. Let's meet soon." But before he could hit send, Maya appeared at his shoulder. "Who's that?" Daniel fumbled. "Just Lily. She's been checking in." Maya's expression darkened. "Lily? The one who disappeared when you needed her most? The one who wasn't there the night you almost died?" Daniel hesitated. "She didn't know, Maya. You can't blame her." "I don't blame her," Maya cut in, her tone icy. "I blame you. For thinking anyone could care for you the way I do." The words stung, but guilt silenced him. He deleted the message before sending it. Later that night, unable to sleep, Daniel wandered into the kitchen. He expected to find Maya asleep on the couch, but instead he found her at the table, phone in hand, whispering urgently into it. Her tone was sharp, impatient, almost threatening. When she saw him, she snapped the phone shut. "Can't sleep?" she asked, voice suddenly sweet. "Who were you talking to?" Just, no one. Her smile was too quick, her eyes too steady. But Daniel wasn't convinced. The cracks widened the next day. While retrieving his jacket from her bag, he found a folded newspaper clipping. It was an article about his accident. The headline screamed, "Local man survives deadly crash." In the margins, scribbled in ink, were words that chilled him. "Fate brought us together. He is mine now." He froze. His heart thudded. Why would she write that? How long had she been carrying this around? When he confronted her gently, she laughed it off. "Oh, Daniel. You think too much. That was just me being silly. I was scared of losing you. That's all." Her explanation soothed him for a moment, but not completely. Because beneath the laughter, her eyes dared him to push further. And Daniel didn't. Because as much as the cracks frightened him, the thought of losing his only savior frightened him more. But deep down he knew, masks always break. And when Maya's did, he wasn't sure he'd survive what lay beneath. Daniel had always believed recovery meant getting his life back. But weeks after leaving the hospital, he realized recovery only meant entering Maya's life on her terms. At first he told himself it was temporary, her hovering, her controlling nature, her constant reminders of what she had done. "I saved you," she said when he questioned her choices. "I'm the reason you're still breathing." It was true, wasn't it? But truth and freedom were not the same. The first signs came in whispers. His phone rang less, messages trickled to none. When he asked his friends why they hadn't visited, they looked away. One muttered, "Maya said you weren't ready." Another said, "She told us you didn't want company." Daniel's chest tightened. She lied to them. He confronted her one night. "Why would you tell them that?" Maya didn't flinch. "Because it's true. They don't care about you, Daniel. If they did, they'd fight harder to be here. But they didn't. I did. I'm the one who fought for you when everyone else gave up." Her words hit like a hammer, sharp, undeniable. Daniel wanted to argue, but his gratitude betrayed him. How could he accuse the woman who had risked her life for him? The walls closed in further. Maya started handling his mail, filtering stress. Bills disappeared into drawers. Invitations vanished. Even his mother's calls grew shorter, strained by Maya's constant presence. "You need to rest," Maya would say sweetly, holding his phone out of reach. "Your family just brings drama. I protect you from that." And Daniel, too tired to resist, let her. But unease gnawed at him. At night he thought about Lily, his childhood friend. He thought about her text, the one he'd deleted. Did she still wonder about him? Or had Maya cut that tie too? He began noticing how Maya thrived in his dependency. When he managed to walk a block alone, she frowned instead of cheered. When he mentioned returning to work, she grew quiet, then whispered, "If you leave me now, after everything I've done, I'll have nothing." It wasn't a statement. It was a threat wrapped in vulnerability. The most chilling moment came one evening when Daniel's father visited unannounced. The tension was immediate. "You look pale," his father said. "Are you even eating?" Maya's smile was sharp. "Of course he is. I take better care of him than anyone ever has." His father's eyes narrowed. "Trust God, son. Not people." But Maya leaned in, her voice like velvet laced with poison. "He trusts me. And that's all he needs." Daniel sat frozen, torn between the father who raised him and the woman who saved him. And in that silence, Maya tightened her hand over his. She won. And that night, Daniel lay awake with one haunting thought. What if my savior doesn't want to save me anymore? What if she only wants to own me? The night was thick with silence. Daniel sat on the couch, his leg propped on a pillow, the TV glowing faintly in the corner. He was half distracted, half trying to ignore the gnawing unease inside him. But Maya wasn't one for silence, not when it wasn't about her. She appeared from the kitchen with 2 glasses of wine. "Let's play a game," she said, her voice soft, almost seductive. Daniel frowned. "What kind of game?" "Confessions," she said, sitting beside him and pressing a glass into his hand. "I'll tell you one of my secrets, then you'll tell me one of yours. No lies. No holding back. That's how real trust works." He hesitated. "Maya, I don't think." "Don't you trust me?" she interrupted, her eyes locking onto his. He swallowed hard. Gratitude tied his tongue. "Of course I do." "Good," she whispered, leaning closer. "Then I'll start." She sipped her wine, then spoke, her tone shifting from playful to dark. "When I was 12, my stepfather tried to leave us. My mother begged him to stay. Do you know what I did?" She paused, her eyes gleaming. "I took his car keys and threw them into the river. He had no choice but to come back inside. He never tried to leave again." Daniel stiffened. That's extreme. It was necessary, she countered almost casually. If you love someone, you don't let them walk away. You keep them. Whatever it takes. Her words chilled him, but she smiled, sipping her wine as if she'd just told a funny childhood story. Now your turn, she pressed. Tell me something you've never told anyone. Daniel hesitated, his mind scrambling. Finally he muttered, when I argued with my dad the night of the crash. I told him I hated him. I didn't mean it, but those were my last words before I nearly died. Maya's face softened with triumph. See? That's what I wanted. Vulnerability. Honesty. But the game didn't stop. Each round, her confessions grew darker. She admitted to lying about friends, manipulating teachers, sabotaging co-workers. Each one dripped with control disguised as survival. Then came the question that turned the game into a trap. Would you kill for me? She asked suddenly, her voice hushed but sharp. Daniel nearly choked on his wine. What? You said you'd die for me, she reminded him. But would you kill for me? If someone tried to take me away from you, would you stop them? His throat tightened. Maya, that's not the same. Answer me, she pressed, her eyes blazing now. Would you? He stammered. I don't know. Her face hardened, then cracked into a chilling smile. You will. One day. Because that's what loyalty means, Daniel. And you owe me that. Daniel stared at her, his heart pounding. Gratitude told him to nod, to agree, to appease her. But fear whispered that he'd just glimpsed the real Maya, and she was far more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. The first warning came from Lily. Daniel hadn't seen her in weeks. Maya always had an excuse. But one crisp afternoon as he walked alone to the pharmacy, Lily appeared at his side. Her smile was cautious, her eyes full of concern. Daniel, she said softly, you look different. He forced a smile. Just healing, I guess. No, she pressed, lowering her voice. Not just that. You're quieter. Distant. What's going on? Before he could answer, Maya emerged from a nearby aisle, holding a bottle of vitamins. Her eyes narrowed the moment she saw Lily. There you are, Maya said sweetly, slipping her arm through Daniel's. I was worried. Lily stiffened. I was just catching up with him. Maya's smile sharpened. Funny you never caught up when he was in the hospital. That's not fair. It's true, Maya cut in smoothly. Daniel needed people and I was the only one there. Where were you, Lily? The tension was suffocating. Daniel muttered something about heading home and Lily's expression fell. But before he left, she caught his wrist briefly, her whisper urgent. Be careful, Daniel. Please. That night, her words echoed in his head. Be careful. But with Maya curled against him on the couch, whispering how much she loved him, he silenced the doubt. Gratitude was louder than warnings. The second sign came from his father. During Sunday dinner, his father noticed Maya answering Daniel's questions for him, correcting him on details, even cutting him off mid-sentence. You let her speak for you now? His father asked, his voice low, almost accusing. Daniel frowned. She's just helping. She's controlling you, his father countered. Son, trust is sacred, but blind trust is dangerous. Maya's fork clattered against the plate. With respect, Pastor, she said coldly, if Daniel hadn't trusted me, he'd be dead. I saved him. I know what's best for him now. His father's jaw tightened. God saved him, not you. The air grew thick. Daniel wanted to intervene, but his father's eyes bore into his. Open your eyes, Daniel. Not everyone who rescues you comes to keep you safe. Daniel looked away. The third warning came from within himself. One evening, he woke to find Maya standing by his bed, staring at him in the dark. Her silhouette was still, her breathing slow, her gaze unwavering. Maya? He whispered, uneasy. She leaned down, kissed his forehead, and whispered, I just like watching you breathe. It reminds me you're alive, because of me. Daniel forced a laugh, but unease crawled through his veins. Why did it feel less like affection and more like ownership? 3 warnings. 3 chances to see clearly. But each time Daniel pushed them aside. Because trusting her felt safer than doubting her. But safety, he didn't realize, was the most dangerous illusion of all. Daniel stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. His face looked healthier, his wounds fading, his body stronger. For the first time since the accident, he felt like himself again. And with that came a dangerous thought. He didn't need Maya as much anymore. The realization was liberating. But it was also terrifying. At breakfast, he cleared his throat. Maya, I think I'm ready to go back to work. Just part-time at first. I need to stand on my own again. The spoon clattered from her hand into the bowl. For a moment her face was unreadable. Then she smiled, but the smile was too sharp, too fast. "Daniel, that's wonderful," she said, her voice sugar-sweet. "But who's going to take care of you when you collapse from pushing too hard? Who's going to make sure you don't end up in another accident?" "I'll be careful," he said firmly. "I need this. For me." Her smile cracked. "For you? After everything I sacrificed? After I gave up my life to keep you alive?" "Maya, I'm grateful," he replied, trying to stay calm. "But I can't stay in this bubble forever. I need—" "You need me," she snapped, slamming her hand on the table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Daniel froze. He had never seen her so unhinged. Her eyes blazed with fury, but her voice dropped to a chilling whisper. "Don't you dare talk about leaving me, Daniel. Without me you're nothing. Broken. Helpless. Forgotten." He swallowed hard, his throat dry. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" she pressed, stepping closer. "When your so-called friends left, who stayed? When your own father judged you, who defended you? It wasn't them, it was me. Always me." Her intensity rattled him, but something inside Daniel snapped. For the first time he said the words he'd been too afraid to speak. "Maya, you're suffocating me." The silence that followed was worse than her rage. Her face went pale, her jaw clenched, and for a heartbeat he thought she might strike him. But instead she laughed, a low, chilling sound. "Suffocating?" she whispered. "If you think this is suffocating, Daniel, you have no idea what real loss feels like. Do you want me to show you?" The threat was veiled but unmistakable. Daniel's chest tightened with dread. He realized then that leaving Maya wasn't just difficult, it might be dangerous. She leaned close, her breath hot against his ear. "You owe me your life. Don't forget that. Ever." And then, just as suddenly, she kissed his cheek, smiling as if nothing had happened. But Daniel knew. The mask had slipped. His savior wasn't a protector. She was a captor. And if he didn't find a way out, gratitude might be the chain that dragged him to his end. Daniel had learned to tread lightly around Maya after their explosive argument, but suspicion gnawed at him. He couldn't silence the whispers in his head. What if she didn't just save me? What if she planned this from the start? One rainy afternoon, while Maya ran errands, Daniel found himself pacing the living room. His eyes drifted to her bag on the chair. He hesitated. He knew it was wrong, but the urge to know overpowered his guilt. His hands shook as he unzipped it. Inside were the usual things: wallet, keys, makeup. But tucked in the side pocket was a small leather journal. He pulled it out, heart racing. The first few pages seemed harmless, full of mundane notes. But then he turned to the middle and his stomach dropped. Page after page was filled with his name. Daniel. 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 Written over and over, sometimes in neat cursive, other times in frantic scrawls that nearly tore the paper. And then, sentences. "He belongs to me. No one will take him away. If he betrays me, he dies with me." Daniel's blood ran cold. He flipped further and found a newspaper clipping taped to a page. Not of his accident this time, but of another one, an unsolved car crash from 3 years ago. A young man had died. Scribbled in the margins were the words, "He wasn't strong enough. But Daniel will be." His hands trembled. What did this mean? Had she done something before? The sound of the door unlocking jolted him. Panic surged. He stuffed the journal back into the bag and zipped it shut just as Maya stepped in, her umbrella dripping rain onto the floor. She eyed him carefully. "What were you doing?" Daniel forced a smile. "Just looking for a pen." Her gaze lingered on him, sharp and suspicious. Then she smiled, too wide, too knowing. "You don't need to go through my things. If you ever want to know something about me, Daniel, just ask." But her eyes betrayed her. They weren't eyes of reassurance. They were eyes of someone who knew he had seen too much. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. The words from the journal burned into his mind. "If he betrays me, he dies with me." For the first time, gratitude no longer silenced his fear. It amplified it. He realized that Maya hadn't saved him out of love. She had saved him out of obsession. Out of need. And if he ever tried to escape her grasp, the accident wouldn't be the most dangerous thing he'd survive. Maya would. But how could he leave, when she had already woven herself into every corner of his life? The storm outside raged like it had been summoned to match the chaos in Daniel's mind. He sat on the edge of his bed, the memory of Maya's journal burning into his thoughts. "If he betrays me, he dies with me." The door creaked. Maya entered quietly, her silhouette framed in the hall light. She didn't speak at first, she just stood there watching him. "You've been quiet lately," she said at last, her voice soft but edged. Daniel forced a nod. "Just tired?" "No," she said, stepping closer. "You're hiding something. I can feel it." His pulse spiked. "Maya, I'm fine." She sat beside him, her hand sliding over his. "Then prove it." Daniel frowned. "Prove what?" "That you trust me." From her pocket she pulled a small velvet box. When she opened it, a silver band gleamed inside. Simple, unadorned, almost symbolic of inevitability. "Marry me," she whispered. Daniel froze. His heart raced, his mind a storm of conflicting voices. Gratitude screamed yes, fear screamed no. Maya's eyes shone, but not with tenderness. They burned with possession. "Say yes and it'll always be us. No more doubts. No more outsiders. You'll be safe with me forever." "And if I say no?" Daniel whispered. Her smile faltered. Slowly she shut the box, slipped it into her pocket, and leaned close enough for her breath to brush his ear. "Then you'll regret it." The words were calm, but the weight behind them was lethal. Daniel's chest tightened. He thought of Lily's plea, "Be careful." His father's warning, "Blind trust is dangerous." And the journal with its frantic scrawls of ownership. Yet he also remembered her pulling him from the wreck, whispering, "I've got you." That memory was the chain around his neck, keeping him tethered. He looked at her. She smiled again, mask restored, eyes soft as though nothing had been said. "So," she whispered, "what's it going to be?" The storm howled outside, rattling the windows. Inside, Daniel realized the choice before him wasn't about love, it was about survival. And whichever answer he gave, survival would come at a cost.